The Caribbean nation of Barbados has launched a new program to attract work-from-home foreigners. The Barbados Welcome Stamp actually allows visitors to stay on the island visa-free for up to 1 year. This as the coronavirus pandemic hits Barbados' tourism industry, which accounts for a big part of the country's economy. Joining us live now is the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mottley. Mia, thank you so much for being with us. So, even though Barbados hasn't really had that many cases, only about 100, I think less than 100 actually, how hard has this pandemic been on your country's tourism sector?
We've actually had a little more than that, but most of our cases, almost more than 90%, have been imported. Our tourism sector has been affected largely because all travel stopped really at the end of March, largely because of the quarantine mechanisms which countries were putting in place. And of course, while we've had some limited resumption since the end of July, middle of July, it's really not anywhere near what we're accustomed to, probably about 15% of our normal load. So it's been extremely difficult for us and all other travel-dependent countries in the region. The Caribbean, as you know, is the most travel-dependent region in the world. So we're not only facing the direct impact of COVID, we're facing the consequences of COVID, which are far greater for us than the actual impact of COVID.
But Prime Minister Mottley, do you fear that perhaps with this sort of tourism, this initiative that you're proposing, inviting more tourists into the country, that the number of cases and the number of deaths will only rise?
I like the sound of Mia better. Please call me Mia.
Okay.
No, we recognize that we have to put measures in place, and we've been very, very careful about the measures that we've put in place. We change the protocols every 2 weeks because it's a dynamic situation. There are countries that move into high risk. There are countries that drop from high to medium or low. We have different protocols for each. We have designated hotels, designated villas for quarantine. We have a second test applied for persons who come in from high-risk countries just to make sure, and medium risk, to make sure they're all right. High-risk countries have to quarantine for 7 days. If they do the second test, if they don't do the second test, they'll do the full 14-day quarantine. And it's been working very well. We have had, I would say, 4 or 5 days a week, we may get 1 or 2 or 3 imported cases, but no more than about 10 on average in a week. So that, we know that the virus is across the global community. Barbados is a member of the global community. We cannot isolate ourselves fully from it. We're an island. And it's the same with all of the other countries, St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Vincent, Bermuda, Jamaica, Trinidad, all of us. So we face the same reality, and we have to learn to live with it. And our people, quite frankly, have been very responsive for the most part, very responsible. But it's a difficult moment. And the shadow of COVID for us will live much longer than COVID, largely because of how it has decimated the tourism sector. And that's why we introduced the stamp, quite frankly, because we recognize that short-term tourism isn't going to work easily in these times with the safety protocols that we have to put in place.
And just quickly, if you're inviting people from, let's say, Brazil, the United States, even India, which all three of which have a high number of cases, I understand the various policies and the fact that they have to quarantine for a certain number of time, but even after that, is social distancing mandatory? Is mask wearing mandatory?
Yep. Yep. We haven't made mask wearing mandatory, but for the most part, we've said to everyone, and we strongly encourage mask wearing in public places, and Barbadians, for the most part, are responding to it. We've also indicated that physical distancing, if you can't physical distance, then you absolutely have to wear your mask. And the country has a high degree of citizenship engagement, and we're grateful for that. And I think that those of you who visit here will recognize that this is a place where you can be comfortable, where you can be safe. But yes, you will have to comply.
Mia, unfortunately, we run out of time, but thank you so much for coming on the program, and I wish you best of luck with this initiative. Thank you so much. Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados. Of course, COVID-19 is impacting economies around the world, hitting some industries harder than others and jeopardizing decades of progress for women in the workplace. We'll have more on that after the break.